Parenting is supposed to be about safety, about love, about protection. We spend every day trying to build a safe little world for our children. Checking the doors, picking the right babysitter, holding their hand in crowded places, watching them like a hawk at the playground. That's the promise we make as parents, right? To keep them safe from everything. But here's the part that's hard to admit. Sometimes, no matter how careful we are, that safety is just an illusion. Think about it. You turn your head for 1 second, and your child could be gone. You trust someone to look after them, and that trust could be misplaced. You move to a new house, thinking you're starting fresh, only to realize you've walked into someone else's nightmare. That's the kind of fear that keeps parents awake at night. Not ghosts, not imaginary monsters hiding under the bed, but the real ones, the ones living in plain sight. And that's what tonight is about. These stories you're about to hear are not made up. They're not urban legends. They are true, disturbing accounts of parents who faced the kind of nightmare every parent secretly fears. A babysitter who wasn't what she seemed. A trip to the mall that almost ended in tragedy. And a family that thought they found the perfect home, only to discover they weren't the only ones living there. If you're a parent, these stories may feel way too close to home. And if you're not, you may still find yourself double-checking your locks tonight, or looking twice the next time you see a child wandering on their own. Before we get into it, let me just say, if you enjoy true stories that make your skin crawl, the kind that make you think twice about the world around you, then hit that subscribe button. It's free, it helps the channel grow, and it means you won't miss the next time we step into the shadows together. So settle in. Keep the lights low if you dare. And if you're a parent listening to this, maybe pull your little one a bit closer while you can. Because what you're about to hear isn't about monsters from fairy tales. It's about the people we trust, the places we feel safe, the ordinary babysitter, the family trip to the mall, the dream home in a quiet neighborhood. Ordinary things, ordinary people. Until they're not. And that's what makes these stories so disturbing. Because if it could happen to them, what's stopping it from happening to you? Parents trust babysitters with the most important thing in the world, their children. And for most, it works out just fine. But what if that trust is misplaced? Sarah and David were like any young parents. Busy jobs, long hours, and a little 3-year-old girl who was their entire world. Her name was Lily. Bright eyes, always laughing, always dragging her stuffed bunny everywhere she went. But with work piling up and no nearby relatives to help, they knew they needed someone to watch Lily a few evenings a week. Someone responsible. Someone safe. That's when they met Emily. Emily was 16, the daughter of a friend's coworker. She showed up to the interview in jeans and a cardigan, smiling shyly, her hair neatly tied back. She seemed so polite, so dependable. She talked about her grades, how she wanted to save money for college, how much she loved kids. And honestly, Sarah and David were relieved. Emily seemed perfect. The first few weeks went smoothly. Emily arrived on time, played with Lily, and texted updates when Sarah asked. Lily even seemed excited when Emily came over, which was all the reassurance they needed. But then little things started happening. First, it was Lily's sleep. She started having nightmares, bad ones. She'd wake up crying, clutching her bunny, saying she didn't want to be alone. Sarah chalked it up to growing pains, bad dreams that came with being a toddler. Then toys went missing. Small things, blocks, dolls, puzzle pieces, always turning up in strange places. One time Sarah found Lily's favorite stuffed bear shoved under the couch cushions, its button eyes staring up at her. Food too. Yogurts, juice boxes, snacks from the fridge would vanish. At first, Sarah thought maybe Emily was just helping herself without asking. Annoying, but harmless. Still, a feeling kept nagging at her. Something didn't sit right. One night, Sarah was cleaning up after putting Lily to bed when she noticed the baby monitor. She hadn't checked it in days. Curious, she pressed play on the recording function just to see. What she heard made her stomach tighten. The audio was faint, but there were voices. Not Lily's, not Sarah's, not David's. A low, hushed whisper in the middle of the night. Almost soothing, almost chanting. Sarah froze, listening closer. A girl's voice, Emily's voice, saying things like, "You're safe with me. I won't let them take you. You belong with me. Her heart dropped. The next day, Sarah asked Lily about it. Sweetheart, did Emily talk to you last night? Lily looked confused. Then she whispered, Emily tells me secrets. She says not to tell you. Sarah's blood ran cold. She told David, and for a moment they tried to rationalize. Maybe Emily was just comforting Lily. Maybe it wasn't as sinister as it sounded. But still, Sarah couldn't shake it. A few nights later, everything changed. They had gone out to dinner, just a short date night. But halfway through dessert, Sarah felt uneasy, a gut feeling she couldn't ignore. She convinced David to leave early. When they walked in the door, the house was dark. Too quiet. Upstairs, the baby monitor glowed faintly. Sarah crept down the hall, heart pounding, and pushed Lily's door open. And there was Emily, not sitting on the couch, not watching TV, not texting her friends. She was in the dark, sitting on the edge of Lily's bed, rocking back and forth, her face pale, her eyes wide. She was stroking Lily's hair and muttering under her breath. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. David rushed in, flicked on the light, and Emily jerked like she'd been caught stealing. What are you doing? David shouted. Emily's eyes darted between them, and then down to Lily, still asleep, clutching her bunny. Her voice cracked. I was keeping her safe. You don't understand. She needs me. That was it. David pulled her away. Sarah scooped Lily into her arms, and they called the police. What they learned afterward made the hair on Sarah's neck stand on end. Emily had babysat in a nearby town before, and she had been banned from several families, always for strange behavior. Obsessive, possessive, talking to children about keeping them forever. In one case, she had even tried to convince a child to pack a bag and come live with her. It wasn't just babysitting. It was an obsession, a dangerous one. Emily was taken in for questioning, and Sarah and David never saw her again. But the damage was done. Lily had nightmares for months, sometimes waking in the night asking if Emily was coming back. Soft pause. Music swells lightly. The scariest part of this story? It wasn't obvious at first. Emily didn't look dangerous. She didn't act dangerous. To anyone else, she was just a teenager trying to earn some money. And yet behind that sweet smile was something darker, something twisted. Because trust is fragile, especially when it comes to who you leave your children with. So, if you're listening right now, let me ask, how well do you really know the person watching your kids? How well do you know who tucks them in when you're not there? That thought alone is enough to keep you up at night. A parent looks away for just a second, just long enough to check a text, browse a shelf, blink, and their child is gone. That's the nightmare Lisa lived through one afternoon. Lisa was a single mother, raising her 6-year-old son, Ethan. They were close. He was her little shadow, her best friend, the one who could always make her laugh even after a long day. Saturdays were their special time. And on this Saturday, she had promised him a trip to the mall. Ethan loved the toy store there. He'd save up his allowance, pocket change from grandparents, little crumpled bills and coins he kept in a jar. For weeks, he'd been talking about buying a new action figure. So, Lisa agreed, first the toy store, then maybe a snack in the food court. A simple day. Harmless. The mall was crowded. Families shuffling, teenagers laughing, people carrying bags from one store to another. Lisa held Ethan's hand as they walked in, weaving through the noise, the colors, the overwhelming chaos of a Saturday afternoon. When they reached the toy store, Ethan's eyes lit up. He tugged on her arm. Mom, can I look at the superheroes? Just real quick. Lisa smiled. She always loved seeing that spark in his face, the way his whole body bounced when he was excited. Okay, she said. Stay where I can see you. Ethan darted a few steps ahead, lost instantly among the shelves stacked with bright boxes. Lisa turned toward a nearby rack of clothes right outside the store, just for a second. She flipped through a few hangers, distracted by a sale sign, and when she looked back, he was gone. At first, it didn't register. Kids wander, they move fast. She stepped inside the toy store, scanning the aisles. Ethan? Her voice was casual, still light. No answer. She checked the superhero aisle. Empty. The puzzle section. Nothing. The back wall where the stuffed animals were lined up in rows. No Ethan. Her voice grew sharper. Ethan? Other shoppers glanced her way. Lisa's chest tightened. She did a quick circle of the store, her heart beating faster with each empty aisle. Gone. The realization hit like ice water. In the span of seconds, her little boy had disappeared. Lisa bolted to the front, scanning the mall's wide hallway. Dozens of people streamed past. Shopping bags swinging, kids in strollers, couples holding hands. But not Ethan. Her hands shook as she grabbed a security guard standing near the food court. My son, he's missing. He was just here. He's 6, brown hair, blue shirt with a rocket on it. Please, you have to help. The guard looked calm, almost too calm. Kids wander off all the time. He's probably just playing hide and seek. We'll find him. But Lisa knew. A mother always knows. This wasn't hide and seek. Minutes ticked by like hours as more guards joined the search. They fanned out, radioing descriptions, checking bathrooms, side halls, stairwells. Lisa followed, her voice raw as she shouted Ethan's name over and over. But there was no answer. Every second without him felt like a lifetime. Her mind spiraled. What if someone had grabbed him? What if he was already outside? Already in a car? Then she saw it. At the far end of the corridor, near an exit door, a man was walking quickly. Too quickly. And in his hand, Ethan's hand. Lisa froze for half a second, her brain struggling to catch up with her eyes. That was Ethan. That was her son. Being led away. Her scream tore through the mall. That's him. That's my son. Heads turned. The man glanced back, startled. And for a split second Lisa saw his face. Calm, collected, like he belonged there. He tightened his grip on Ethan's arm, trying to move faster. Lisa ran, pushing past strangers, nearly falling as she sprinted toward them. Security guards reacted instantly, 2 rushing to block the exit. The man stopped short, his voice suddenly smooth. What's the problem? He's my nephew. His mom asked me to take him to the car. But Ethan's face told the truth. His little cheeks were wet with tears, his free hand reaching out desperately for his mother. Mom! Lisa grabbed him, pulling him into her arms, clutching him so tight he could barely breathe. She glared at the stranger, her entire body trembling. He's not your nephew. He's my son. The mall erupted in chaos. Shoppers yelling, guards restraining the man as he protested, still insisting it was a misunderstanding. But Lisa knew. Everyone could see it. Ethan's shaking body, his terrified cries. It was no misunderstanding. The police came quickly. The man was arrested. And when investigators dug deeper, the truth came out. This wasn't random. It wasn't chance. The man was part of a trafficking ring. They targeted busy malls, watching for distracted parents, waiting for that one split second when a child's hand slipped free or a mother looked away. They moved fast. Too fast. Lisa had been seconds away from losing Ethan forever. That night, when they finally made it home, Lisa sat in Ethan's room while he slept, her hand gripping his tiny one under the covers. She couldn't stop shaking, couldn't stop replaying it, how close she came to never seeing him again. And the terrifying part? She had done nothing wrong. She wasn't careless. She wasn't neglectful. She had looked away for less than a minute. But that's all it took. Soft pause. Music fades low. A parent's worst nightmare doesn't need ghosts or monsters. It just needs a crowded mall, a distracted moment, and the wrong person watching from a distance. So the next time you're out in public holding your child's hand, remember Lisa. Remember Ethan. Remember how quickly ordinary can turn into unthinkable. Because distraction is all it takes. And sometimes, all it takes is a single second for a child to vanish. Sometimes, parents do everything they can to give their children a better life. A safer neighborhood, a bigger yard, a fresh start. But sometimes, that dream can lead straight into danger. Mark and Jenna had been saving for years. They were both hard workers, living paycheck to paycheck in a cramped apartment, all for the sake of their son, Tyler. He was 10 years old, growing fast, and they hated the idea of him spending his childhood in a place with no room to play. So when they stumbled across the listing for a house at the edge of town, it felt like fate. It was bigger than anything they thought they could afford. 3 bedrooms, a backyard, even a little porch. The price was shockingly low, almost suspiciously so. But when they asked the realtor, she just shrugged and said the house had been empty for years. The owners wanted it gone. Mark and Jenna were thrilled. Within a month, they signed the papers, packed their things, and moved in. First, everything seemed perfect. Tyler finally had his own room. He rode his bike in the driveway, explored the trees at the back of the yard, and ran through the halls like he owned the place. For the first time in years, Mark and Jenna felt like they were giving their son the life he deserved. But then the complaints started. It was subtle at first. One evening over dinner, Tyler mentioned casually, "There's a man in the backyard." Mark nearly choked on his food. "What do you mean, a man?" Tyler shrugged. "I see him sometimes. By the trees. He just stands there." Jenna and Mark exchanged a look. Kids had active imaginations. Tyler loved scary stories. And with the move, maybe he was just spooking himself. Mark ruffled his son's hair and said, "Don't worry, buddy. There's no man out there. Probably just shadows." But a few nights later, Jenna went to close Tyler's window and noticed something that froze her in place. Footprints. Clear, fresh footprints pressed into the dirt beneath the window. Not small ones. Adult ones. She called for Mark, her voice trembling. He tried to brush it off. Maybe kids from the neighborhood, maybe delivery guys who cut across the yard. But the nearest houses were half a mile away. And these prints led right to Tyler's window. And nowhere else. Over the next week, more strange things happened. Tyler's toys started turning up outside. His action figures lined up neatly along the edge of the porch. His baseball glove sitting in the grass. When Jenna asked him if he moved them, Tyler just shook his head. "He did," he whispered. "The man. He talks to me at night." That was when the fear really set in. Jenna pressed him for details, but all Tyler would say was that the man promised to take him somewhere better. Somewhere where kids never had to leave. Mark tried to stay rational. "It's just a phase," he told Jenna late one night. "He's making up stories." But Jenna wasn't so sure. She'd seen the footprints. She'd seen the toys. And then one night, Mark found out for himself. He had stayed up late in the living room, determined to prove this whole thing was in their heads. Midnight passed. 1 o'clock. 2 o'clock. The house was silent, shadows stretching across the walls. And then he heard it. A faint rattle. The sound of the back door handle turning. Slowly, quietly, Mark froze. His pulse roared in his ears as he crept toward the kitchen. Through the glass of the back door, in the dim moonlight, he saw it. A shadowy figure. Tall, broad, hands gripping the handle, testing it. Trying to get in. Mark shouted, slamming his fist against the wall. The figure jerked, then bolted into the trees, disappearing into the dark. Mark ran outside barefoot, heart hammering, but the man was gone. Only the footprints remained, deep and deliberate, leading into the woods. The police came quickly. They searched the property, the woods, the nearby road. Nothing. But what they told Mark and Jenna afterward made their blood run cold. The house they had bought, it wasn't just empty for years. It had belonged to a man with a disturbing history. He had been arrested decades ago for child abduction. Rumors swirled that he had lured children into that very house. He died in prison, but the property had a reputation. People avoided it. So who had been there that night? The police couldn't say. Maybe a relative. Maybe someone obsessed with the house's dark history. Maybe just a drifter who knew the stories and decided to play them out. But one thing was clear. Someone had been watching their son, talking to him, trying to take him. That was enough. Within a week, Mark and Jenna packed their belongings back into boxes. They didn't care about the mortgage, didn't care about the money they'd lose. They cared about one thing only, getting their son out of that house. They never went back. Music drops low, uneasy. The scariest part of the story isn't the house, or even the man outside the window. It's the realization that sometimes the real danger isn't supernatural at all. It's human, flesh and blood, walking among us. Because a ghost can't climb through a window, but a man can. And when you're a parent, that thought is far, far more terrifying than any ghost story. Narrator calm but heavy. Parenting is one of the most powerful acts of love. But woven into that love is fear, constant, gnawing fear. It's the fear that you can't always protect your child. That the world is bigger, darker, and more unpredictable than you can ever control. And when that fear becomes real, it changes everything. We saw it with the young mother who only wanted a quiet night at home with her newborn, only to realize that even in the safety of her own house, she wasn't alone. A stranger, an intruder, lurking just beyond the shadows, reminding her that danger doesn't always knock before it enters. We felt it again in the chaos of the mall. A mother's brief distraction, just a few seconds, long enough for someone to try and take her son forever. And in that moment, all the noise of the world, the laughter, the footsteps, the chatter, faded into a single, deafening silence. A child's absence. And then, the family who thought they had found a new beginning in a quiet home at the edge of town, only to discover that evil doesn't need ghosts to haunt a house. Sometimes it wears a human face. Sometimes it waits patiently in the backyard, just beyond the curtain, waiting for the right moment. 3 stories, 3 families, 3 moments where everything almost fell apart. Beat of silence. Music deepens slightly. What makes these stories so disturbing isn't just the terror itself. It's how ordinary they begin. Quiet night, a quick trip to the store, a move to a new home, everyday choices that any parent might make without a second thought. And yet, hidden in those ordinary moments was something dangerous, something ready to strike. That's the reality of parenting, isn't it? You don't just raise your child, you guard them. Every decision is laced with worry. Who's watching them? Who's walking behind them? What could happen if I look away just once? People like to imagine monsters as things out of fairy tales. Creatures hiding under the bed or ghosts drifting down hallways. But the truth is, the real monsters are harder to see. They walk past you in the grocery store. They smile politely as you pass them in the parking lot. They wait in places you think are safe. And sometimes, they wait for your child. Soft pause. Music fades almost to silence. That's why instinct matters. That tug in your gut, that voice in your head that whispers, something isn't right. Parents ignore it sometimes, afraid of overreacting, afraid of seeming paranoid. But these stories remind us, trust it. Because instinct might be the only thing standing between safety and tragedy. The mother who checked the baby monitor when she thought she heard something. The mom who screamed when she saw her son being led away. The father who stayed awake just long enough to catch the shadow at the back door. Their instincts saved their children. And that's the terrifying, unshakable truth. Parenting is both the greatest love and the greatest burden. You're not just living for yourself anymore. You're living for them. And with that love comes a constant question. What if I can't keep them safe? Music swells again, eerie and slow. So if you're a parent listening to this tonight, let these stories linger. Let them remind you that vigilance matters, that love is fierce, that instinct is powerful. And maybe hug your child a little tighter, double-check the locks, look twice at the crowd. Listen when the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Because sometimes the monsters aren't hiding in storybooks. Sometimes they're standing right behind us,